Hello, YouTube. I am your host, the Crimson Warrior, and today I want to bring you guys my final thoughts and review on The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening because it is an absolutely surreal experience from its similarities to the Metroidvania-like design that's forcing you constantly to explore your environment with your new abilities to see what limits you can push and where you need to go next, to the fact that the whole game has been lovingly remade from its 8-bit roots to the HD future, creating a sense of hominess and wonderment that just wasn't in the original, and also the lovable cast of characters that help you on your way to your journey. Link's Awakening is worth your money, and there's no experience similar, bar none. Let's get into it, shall we? Starting with the story, Link is battling a massive storm as he's cresting over a wave. Something rises up from the depths below, and Link gets struck by lightning, washing up upon Koholint Island, where he gets found by island local Marin, who takes Link in and brings him to her house. Now that is where Link awakens, and upon waking up, Link mistakes Marin for her Zelda. Very quickly the confusion gets cleared up. Marin and Terran introduce themselves and tell Link that they were able to retrieve his shield, which had his name on it, but unable to find his sword because of the monsters that cropped up around it, and they send you off exploring to search your sword. Now, when you find your sword, all of a sudden, mysterious music begins to play, and you will become acquainted with your new stalwart companion, an owl, who lets on that not all is what it seems in Koholint Island, and sends you off in the right direction if you want to leave. Basically collecting the 8 sirens instruments to play the Song of Awakening that Marin teaches you very graciously from the beginning, and that sets you off on your epic adventure, helping out island locals, solving problems, and collecting the 8 musical instruments that'll help you complete your journey and get off the islands. Now, getting into the gameplay, the most important aspect of it, in my opinion, the gameplay has been massively improved on all fronts, starting with Link's sword swing. It hits a full 180 degrees around him, hitting enemies to his left, right, and center, making the sword an ultimate spacing tool rather than a 90-degree window that forces you to keep enemies at a 45. The sword and shield also have dedicated buttons now, being B and R. B for sword and R for shield, and it allows for much more freedom to use your items, which is a good thing because this game banks on the fact that it's very similar to the Metroidvania genre, going into the puzzle and dungeon progression. It starts off very simple, showing you almost a tutorial basically of what you're going to be doing, and you get your first ability, the ability to jump, and that ramps up to hookshot, bow, boomerang. You need to remember the fact that you have all of these abilities by the time you get to end game, because dungeons will drop hints and clues that you need to use these items by sprinkling them throughout and adding a couple enemies that are only vulnerable to a set couple of items. But for the most part, the game leaves it to your intelligence to figure out that you need to remember the fact you have these capabilities. Now, beyond the dungeons, which are still tile by tile movement, the whole overworld is now displayed in scrolling motion, meaning the camera follows Link as he goes around. No more tile by tile movement in the overworld, allowing you to run for long stretches with the Pegasus boots and just have a blast exploring the overworld without a screen transition every minute or so, basically. Just opens up and gives a great sense of freedom and exploration as you explore Koholint Islands. The heart container count has been increased as well. They've added many pieces of heart hidden in new places. All of the pieces of heart are hidden in old places, and some bad design choices were fixed, like invisible bombable walls with no cracks. I believe all incidences where that was in the original game was fixed. In tiles where you can dive to get heart pieces, you can actually see that the heart pieces are down there, as also the super seashells and stuff like that. So they finally added warnings and showings for these items instead of just expecting you to douse with your sword on every wall in the game, which is a bit tedious and ridiculous, and I think was a amazing choice in providing better flow for the game, essentially. The music and sound effects. Now, not to be cliche or anything, but the music is awe-inspiring and perfect for the moment in every way, and I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. Every location has a fresh track, basically, and that really helps because Koholint Island is a really small place and you're really forced to re-explore a lot. So each location having its own music keeps things incredibly fresh, creates a dynamic range, and you're never bored of the same tune, because even though when tunes repeat, they're good songs and you won't hear them too much to where the point it won't grate on your ears. And also it's not on that old Game Boy sound chip anymore, for those of you who didn't enjoy it. Me personally, I like it, but I know a lot of people hate those old chiptune sound devices used on handhelds, and they can be very grating on the ear sometimes. Now, getting into the sound effects, everything is crisp and perfect, from Link's cries of pain to bomb explosions to the sound of an enemy being vanquished. Everything works incredibly cohesively and brings together the experience, making it all feel very real and visceral. Getting into the presentation of the game, as you guys know, it was a point of contention for this remake. We have a Toys to Life presentation, which I think is incredibly cute and endearing. Everything except for the beginning of the game and the end of the game is in this Toys to Life aesthetic, which actually adds much endearment to the islands. Marin and Terran look awesome. All of the animal friends that you meet are incredibly cute. Everything just feels right with this art style. The house interiors have been given completely fleshed out interiors, making things feel homey and way more detailed than the original, showing you little aspects and quirks of the characters' personalities and giving foreshadowing in a way that couldn't be done on the Game Boy, because you get to see little tidbits and pictures in people's houses that, if you pay attention to, reveal little details kind of before you have them. The environment detail is awesome, from enemy design to trees. Everything is very, I don't want to say real, but physical, I guess, could be a good term. Everything it feels like you can touch it. And that is actually really good for enveloping you within the game and making you feel like you are a part of this adventure. Also, there's this depth of field effect similar to Octopath Traveler that blurs out the edges and allows you to focus on Link, basically, and puts a diorama sort of perspective on things, making you feel like you're playing within a toy box or a diorama, really tapping into that childlike mentality. Nintendo really knows how to get you with its art style, and I think the presentation, even though it was controversial a little bit, I think people overblew it. This is still a Legend of Zelda title. In my previous review, I complained about the xylophone-esque noise in the main town theme, making it feel a little too Toys to Life. That feeling eventually started to fade away as I played the game more. It actually all worked cohesively in a wonderful package, and it feels like a really dim nitpick now that I'm doing this final review. But this is why we do first impressions and final reviews. Now, let's recap. The game's story immediately draws you in with a high-stakes sea adventure and Link waking up as a castaway on an island, essentially. The gameplay has been revamped and totally remade for modern gamers to appeal to those who don't have time for the classics anymore. Modern save system, no more tile by tile movement except for in dungeons. Everything is extremely modern, including the diagonal movement, which I think is a huge help to just movement in general and really frees up those games where you could only move in 4 directions. Getting into the music and presentation, like I said earlier, they are absolutely gorgeous. And I think Link's Awakening is an absolutely amazing game that if you like the Legend of Zelda series, hell, even if you don't like the Legend of Zelda series, this is a perfect starting point. It is everything Zelda is condensed and turned into this loving Game Boy game that is now on Switch with no Hyrule, no Zelda, no Triforce. This is a Legend of Zelda game with Link and an adventure, and that's what Legend of Zelda games are at their core. Even though we have these motifs to work with, it's amazing to see what the development team can do when it's all stripped away, and adding Mario-like elements, which I didn't even touch upon this whole time, was a touch of genius that varies up the gameplay on its 2D dimensions in a very refreshing way. I would recommend Link's Awakening to any of my friends or anyone trying to get into the Legend of Zelda series. What did you think about the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening? Did you like it as much as I did? Do you still find the art style a little grating even after the release and initial controversy? Tell me down below. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video, and subscribe if you enjoy my content, because it ain't stopping now. Also, hit the notification bell. Peace, guys.